Okay, is this better? Because I keep forgetting to turn this microphone on. It's a really inconvenient spot for me. All right. All right. So we're going to take a look at the slides, and then we're going to go in a little bit more detail through the final exam overview after some questions. That'll include take a look at some of the video clips that are involved with the final exam packet. All right, so let's take a look at the slides for this week. Is dealing with synthesis. All right. So, what is synthesis? It's somewhat related to the concept of analysis. Synthesis involves taking elements from research sources and integrating them together to form a new argument. Okay. That is your main idea here, is that you're going to be taking elements from a bunch of different sources, bringing them together, and trying to create your own argument based on what those guys have to say. When you synthesize into a discussion, what you're doing is building upon the arguments that have been previously made by integrating elements of those arguments together into a new idea. So you're not explicitly just copying what other people have said. What you're actually doing is taking elements that they have brought to the argument and integrating them together and creating your own argument based on what you've read. So this next major essay that we're doing is going to be the analysis synthesis essay. You will need to employ elements of the last essay assignment and add a synthesis of the research you performed for this assignment. So remember, if I can refresh your memory here, the scholarship essay was doubling as an analysis essay where you had to analyze the topic that you were given by the scholarship group. Okay. This next major essay is going to be a synthesis of that, where you're going to analyze the topic, but then you're also going to synthesize what other sources have to say about that topic, to try to form a fully fleshed argument. Okay. All right, so active synthesizing. Best way to synthesize research is to have a wealth of information to draw upon. Okay. We had the sample from the textbook, the passage from The Young and the Digital, where the author integrates two research sources, pulling information from them while framing that information within an original argument of the author's creation. Now, because we're at the point in the textbook where my chapters and your chapters do not match, you may have noticed if you watched the video lecture that I'm actually putting the text up of these excerpts. Okay, this is going to be a little harder next week because we're going to have some excerpts that you need to find bibliographical information on, which I'm going to have you guys going into the textbook for it. I'm pretty sure I gave you the right chapter, but it'll be up to you to try to find it. I will supply you with the excerpts, though. Okay? So, the main idea is, again, bringing together ideas from other sources and combining them and combining elements from all of them to create your own argument. Three main goals in synthesis are one is to keep the larger goals in mind. Always be aware of the context into which you will be synthesizing information. There you go. Okay, I had a signal issue here. So first off, keep larger goals in mind. Always be aware of the context into which you're going to be synthesizing information. Second is to identify a main point. So that's going to be act as your central argument to which you'll be synthesizing your research information. Aim all of your synthesis essay energy toward proving this main point. So the main idea behind the synthesis is you're going to try to prove what it is you have to say based on what others have said about it. Now, you use only the source material that you need. Excessive information will be a distraction both to you and your audience. So keep your information gathering lean and streamlined. All right. So we're looking at each individual point in depth here. When you're conducting research, it is easy to lose sight of the main goal of your work. Okay, so you want to keep the larger goal in mind. Remind yourself as you go along of what your central idea is. okay, and maintain the idea as your focus, okay. There is a sample in the textbook, sample passage that keeps an eye toward an overall idea of exploring the social impact of digital media, but it also focuses on the particulars of the time young people spend on digital media, particularly on social media, okay. The idea, the main idea that the author wanted to get across is digital media is going to have a social impact, positive or negative. And the particular focus that he went with for that passage is looking at children, children and teenagers. But he's still looking at the bigger picture. All right, next one, identify a main point. Focus your central idea as you perform your synthesis in order to better narrow your ideas. Okay, you need to have a goal in mind, an idea of what argument you're going to prove before you start synthesizing, so that you make sure that all the research that you do and all the stuff that you pull from your research is aimed toward that main point. Okay, because really with synthesis, what you're doing is managing information from several different sources to make a single connected point. Okay. On page 238, there's a passage about vegetarianism, which I shared with you. Pulls from 3 disparate sources to make a single point about vegetarianism affecting breastfed babies, while keeping an eye on the central idea about the existence of those longstanding debates about vegetarianism. Okay. There were 3 main sources that they were pulling from. A couple of them were professional organizations. One of them was the American Dietetic Association, which is a nutritional advisory board. Okay, so there was a lot of good expert analysis there that was drawn upon to create that argument. Next one, use only the source material you need. Attempts to synthesize too much information into an essay will easily overwhelm you as the writer and your audience as the reader. So you want to only look for the most pertinent information to prove your point. Too much information is going to leave your essay unclear in terms of direction it is moving or with a questionable statement of argument. Okay? You do not want to overload your research with stuff that's irrelevant. Okay, so make sure you keep in mind, again, bigger picture and the focus of your particular discussion point or your argument, and make sure you're only drawing research materials that work with those particular points. Okay, that's what we're working with the questions as a professor exercise here. Okay, asking you to synthesize a paragraph from the 4 excerpts that I provided for you. Make sure it reads like a reasonable paragraph, has a central point, and integrates enough information from all 3 sources to make your point, but not so much to overwhelm the reader. Okay? The main point is to make a new argument and derive your evidence for that argument from the materials you synthesize from. Okay, so for those of you that have not done that exercise already, I've seen a couple people have already done it. Okay? For those of you who have not done it already, this is the goal of that exercise. Okay? So, moving on. That gets us to the essay, analysis synthesis essay. Incidentally, just as a reminder, the blog project is due on Friday. The link to turn it in will open up on tomorrow at midnight. And the stuff that you have to turn in is outlined at the link. But basically, here's what I want from you to turn in. For the blog project, I need you to turn in a Word file that contains your own contributions to the blog. It also needs to include the direct blog URL. That is to say, the URL that will take me to the blog, not to whatever editor you're using. Okay. When you include your blog post, I need the text that you wrote along with the visuals that you are analyzing with that text. Okay, text without visuals is not going to do me any good. Right? So the whole package is what you're going to be graded on. Okay, both your content and the amount of analysis you get to the visuals and the appearance of the blog itself. That's why I want the URL. Okay, so once that's out of the way, the next one that you're going to be working on is the analysis synthesis essay. You're going to be breaking down a topic into something more understandable, but also using research on that topic in order to form a new perspective on it, synthesizing the research information into your argument. Okay? So you need to do research for this topic. You need to pull stuff from that research. You need to bring it together and synthesize it to make your point. Okay? This essay requires some further research than the previous essay project. So you will be required to have a works cited page in addition to your essay. This also means you will need to employ in-text citations in proper MLA format. We are going to be talking about all of that next week. Okay, in-text citations and works cited, especially because starting from those people who used them on the previous essay, we definitely need to talk about this. Okay. Now, as far as subject matter, it can come from one of two sources. It's your choice. One possibility is to choose one of the posts from the blog project you just completed and expand on the topic discussed in its visual analysis. Form an argument based on the content of the post and perform research to prove your point, synthesizing from your sources to support your argument. So try to find something that can be talked about, analyzed from one of the posts in your blog. Okay. Something that you can use as an analysis, okay, or some topic that you can use for an analysis, and then do a little bit of research and synthesize what the research says into the point that you want to make. Okay. The other option is to choose one of the discussion board topics and expand upon its original subject matter. Find an argument to be made within either the initial topic itself or the responses that you and your classmates posted, and perform research to analyze the topic, synthesizing from your sources to support your argument. Okay. So I will say I would recommend, if you go with this route, I would use one of the first 9 topics. I just posted number 10 yesterday, and number 10 is not exactly serious. It's more of a Halloween gimmicky type of topic. Still getting some responses, but at the same time, it doesn't really lend itself to analysis. Okay, so I'd recommend one of the first 9 topics, one of the first 9 discussion topics. Okay, if you go that route, right? As the synthesis will be a major element of this essay, you will need to perform research from a minimum of 6 research sources of any type, including internet sources, print sources, and database articles. Okay. This is a hard minimum. Okay, I do not want anybody turning in essays that have no sources, 1 source, 2 source, or anything less than 6. Not only do you have to include them in your works cited, you also actually have to cite them and use them in the paper. It's not enough to just assemble a bunch of sources and push it off on me and say, here's my paper, here's the 6 sources. Have fun trying to figure out where I draw what from. Okay. You need to have the sources all being used, all being properly cited, and you will need to use a works cited page. Okay. So on the next slide, we have the nuts and bolts here. This is the nuts and bolts requirements for this essay. Again, these be 3 to 5 pages. Should be double space, 11 to 12 point font. Acceptable fonts are Times New Roman, Arial, or Calibri. Should have proper MLA formatting. Okay. Works cited should be in proper MLA format for each listing in an alphabetical order. The works cited page does not count toward the overall page count for the essay. Again, next week we're going to talk over MLA formatting. We'll talk about the requirements for that, for both citation and for creating your works cited page. The research sources can be any mix of internet, print, or database sources, but you must have a minimum of 6. Okay? There is no exceptions to that. You have to have at least 6 sources. Okay? Here's the workshop schedule for this essay. Okay? Revision workshop is going to be the week of November 23rd. Now, you may recognize this is Thanksgiving week. Okay? So hopefully you guys, between doing Turkey Day stuff, you will have a chance to do some workshopping. You will be able to post some drafts, okay, and work on some drafts, okay. This might be tougher for you guys who might be traveling. I'm not anticipating too many people doing traveling, even though I know I am. but I'm not anticipating too many people traveling for the holiday this year with the whole outbreak thing. Okay, but week of November 23rd, you want to post your revision drafts. Okay. Uh, the proofreading and editing workshop is the week of November 30th. Okay. You might also recognize this being the last week of the semester. Okay. Uh, the last week of the semester is coming up. Okay. Week of November 30th. So that's going to be proofreading and editing workshop on this essay. And then the essay itself will be due on campus on December 4th. Okay. You will have an extremely limited window for turning this in. Okay. And when I say extremely limited, I mean that you have until following Thursday to turn this essay in, or you will not receive credit for anything later than that. This is mainly because by that time I have to turn in grades. Okay, so plan this in advance so that you can make sure you get this essay in on time. It'll be just like the other assignments. The link will open up on December 3rd, but it is actually due on December 4th. Okay. I will also note one other thing. Go ahead and let you mark your calendars for this already. Week of November 23rd, as I mentioned, I'm going to be traveling for the holiday. For that reason, we will not have a collaborate session that week. Okay. We will pick it up the following week, the last week, so we can get any straggling questions or anything going on. Okay. But week of November 23rd, there will not be a collaborate session. All right, so I'm going to stop right here because the next slide is going to start getting into the final exam overview. I want to take a breather here and let you guys get any questions out that you may have. If you have any questions, go ahead, raise your hand, and I'll call on you. Let's take about 10 minutes to do that, and then we'll get into the final exam overview. All right, if there's no questions, we're going to go ahead and move on here. We'll go to the next slide. And that's going to start our final exam overview. All right, so final exam for this class is going to be a timed writing assignment. Now, you will need to secure a proctor to administer the exam for you. They're going to act as a timekeeper. The proctor can be any responsible adult that you trust that can keep an eye on you while you take the exam to make sure that you do not write anything beyond your time limit, or so that you do everything above board and don't cheat. It's basically what the proctor's there for. Okay. Also, once the exam is over with, the proctor is going to have to put their name at the bottom of your submission before you send it, because it's going to be done through eCampus. That's how we're going to manage to do exams at home. Okay. So, exam packet is currently available on eCampus. It'll give you most of the necessary materials for the exam, as well as a list of 4 possible questions that may appear. Also, keep an eye out. In about 2 weeks, I will post an instruction sheet for your proctors. Okay, so that whoever agrees to be your exam proctor will have that sheet, so they know what to do. Okay. Now, it is highly suggested that you perform some further research into the materials that are presented, especially if some of it is unfamiliar to you. Okay. There's chances are that there's going to be some people who are unfamiliar with some of the materials here. So make sure that you have the packet downloaded. Make sure you do some research ahead of time. Also, highly suggested that you print out the packet. You're allowed to use the packet in the exam, along with any additional material written into it. Your notes are acceptable for use. Okay? Let me repeat that. You are allowed to use the packets, because I'm not testing whether you can memorize facts. I am testing whether you can express yourself in a meaningful manner. Okay? Just to give you an idea here, just real quick, I'm going to show you the first page of the packet. So when you download it, it should look something like this. Okay, big letters at the top, English 1301 final exam packet. You scroll through, we got some images, we got text. It is a grand total of 37 pages. Okay, so make sure that you print the whole thing if you choose to print. Okay, and let's be honest here, I'm expecting you guys to print it. Okay, because I really don't think it'd be a good idea to try to alternate between the exam screen and the screen that you have the packet on. Okay, so we're through that. Let me show you what the exam topic is. That would be, exam topic is children's television censorship. Okay. Always under intense scrutiny, children's television can sometimes veer into areas where general adult audiences become more uncomfortable with subject matter. Reactions to these ventures into the wilderness can vary on a local or national scale, but many times when the ire of the adults thinking of the children is raised, it leads to the censorship or wholesale change to individual episodes or even entire series. Okay, so that's what we're talking about here. We're talking about possible reasons why children's television might run afoul of censors. Okay, there's no usual suspects when it comes to what causes controversy or what shows up it appears on. The only commonality is that something angers a potentially powerful membership of the audience that leads to banning of episodes, cutting of scenes, or in some cases changing characters. Okay, issues causing controversy change over time, ranging from issues with violent content and overtly offensive behavior to uncomfortable social movements such as civil rights or LGBTQIA representation, and uncomfortable societal ills like mass incarceration or the opioid crisis. Okay. Throughout here, we have screenshots from some of the affected shows to try to illustrate what we're looking at, what kind of stuff might have caused controversy. Okay. Let's get to the next slide. So the first thing that's in the packet is a article from the website Looper, where it's talking about the 11 shows that were banned from broadcast when they were found to have offensive material. Now, I'm going to go into a bit more detail in this in the lecture, and I'm actually going to play the video that goes along with the Looper article, the one that Looper directly made, in a little bit here once I get through this. But just as a general overview, here's what the most reasons behind children's TV causing controversy in general are. Okay, using these episodes and series as an example. Okay, one, obviously violence, which the episode in question, Deadly Force episode from Gargoyles. We have offensive content and language, Dexter's Laboratory episode Rude Removal, and the Cow and Chicken episode Buffalo Gals. Then we have physical harm to viewers, the Pokemon episode Electric Soldier Porygon, which actually made headlines when it occurred. The excessive death portrayals, Tiny Toon Adventures episode 1 Deer, and the Sailor Moon episode Day of Destiny. We have offensive religious content. This would include the entire series of Garbage Pail Kids from the 80s, as well as Powerpuff Girls episode See Me, Feel Me, Know Me. Okay. We have overt sexual content. This is Batman the Brave and the Bold episode is The Mask of Matches Malone. And the other one is Outlaw Star episode Hot Springs Planet Tenray. And then the last one, it's hidden behind my graphic because this slideshow generator is kind of janky. But it was for dangerous antisocial behavior. And the show in question is Dudley Do Right. The episode is Stokey the Bear. Okay. The video I'm going to play for you, one of the videos I play for you later talks directly about that. All right, so we have 3 case studies in the packet. One is about an individual episode, one is about a series, and one is about an entire topic. Okay, so the episode we're looking at is the episode Deadly Force from Gargoyles. Okay, this is from the first season of Gargoyles. It was a Disney program from the Disney Afternoon in the early 90s. The episode is the 8th of the season of the first season. As I mentioned in the video, the show had a 5-episode pilot, so this was actually the 3rd regular episode of the series. Okay. Plotline centers on guilt felt by the Gargoyle Broadway after he accidentally shoots the Gargoyle's human ally, police detective Lisa Mazza, with her own gun in her apartment when he was playing cowboy with it. Okay, that's the essence of the episode here. The episode originally aired in syndication, but was removed from rotation and appeared on Disney-owned cable networks such as Toon Disney and Disney XD. Okay. Again, this caused a bit of a problem for fans of the show or anyone who is coming to it because it led to continuity issues. I think I mentioned this in the video, but the following episode after this is an episode titled Enter Macbeth. The next episode shows Elisa still recovering from the gunshot wound. She's on crutches. Okay. They were skipping from episode 7 to episode 9. And by doing that, they've completely glossed over why is she walking in this episode and on crutches the next. Okay, there's no explanation for that unless you know that there's supposed to be an episode in here where she nearly dies. Okay, there were other networks that showed this, showed the series and showed this episode, and they digitally removed blood from this scene that's showing here. Okay. As mentioned in the video, in the lecture video, the network I saw this on, I actually saw this version of it on, was USA Network. They had a morning cartoon block for a while there in the late 90s to early 2000s. Okay, Gargoyles was one of the shows that they showed. When they got to this scene, and really any scene that involved blood, the blood was digitized out. Okay. The episode was restored to the series in 2013 for its DVD collection release for the first season. 2019, the series was one of the first made available for streaming on Disney Plus. Okay, this episode is there, but this scene is not. Okay, the scene has been recut so that it eliminates any shots showing Elisa full body slumped on her kitchen floor. Okay. Now the scene just does a lot with implication. It shows her, it shows him the gun going off, and then you don't see Elisa standing up anymore. You see her arm on the floor. Then you get a close up of her face. It doesn't into this particular shot, right? Because people thought it might be too violent, even though the message of the episode was a gun control episode. Okay, it was at heart a gun control episode. The series case study we're looking at is Sesame Street, okay? Which might surprise you, but it has seen its fair share of controversy. It is the gold standard of American children's television, nonetheless, okay? Now, it's in its 50th season. It's currently split between PBS and HBO, okay? A few years ago, HBO bought the first run rights to new episodes of Sesame Street. Then with I believe, either 2 or 4 week delay, the episodes show up on PBS. Okay. Sesame Street has earned no shortage of criticism over how issues have been portrayed on the show. The loudest and most harsh of it seems to include portrayals on social issues such as multiculturalism and societal ills. Okay. Around the time it debuted in 1969. The South was still kind of in that whole pre-civil rights mentality, especially in the higher echelons of government. I mentioned in the lecture that in 1970, after a campus shooting, Governor of Mississippi demanded that try and Sesame Street in the state of Mississippi because he felt that the messages of integration were too negative. For his state, people weren't accepting of it, and it was just going to lead to more violence. Okay, kind of shows what kind of mindset that person's coming from. Okay, now, more recently, there's also been some stuff where people have been complaining about characters showing up on the show, and some people have complained that it's pandering to a political correctness agenda. And trying to make kids too soft. Okay, that's actually that's an actual argument I've heard of this, which is kind of ridiculous. Okay, so, well, that's just my opinion anyway. All right, so The show has introduced characters over the years which introduce children to these societal concepts, usually in response to criticisms, and have integrated them into the show's overall storyline. Okay. I have a list here of some of these characters. The oldest of them is Roosevelt Franklin, who's shown here. He's intended to be a non-stereotypical African American, okay, to try to break up some of the stereotypes that were showing up on TV. The other characters that were and the issues that were used for, Abby Cadabby was used to talk to kids about divorce. They created the character of Julia to deal with autism. Alex is a character with an incarcerated father, so they're dealing with having your parents in jail. Lily was a character who was suffering from persistent hunger, and then eventually her family became homeless. Kami is a character who appears on the South African iteration of Sesame Street. Kami is a character with HIV. And then you have Carly. Most recent of these was introduced last year. Carly is in foster care because her parents are in rehab for opioid addiction. Okay. So there is an extensive article about Sesame Street that is in this packet. Okay. So let's take a look at the next slide. This is pretty much the hot button topic that has gotten a lot of series in trouble lately. That is LGBTQIA plus representation. Okay. In recent years, the issue that has led to more children's TV to be altered than any other has tended to be issues around this topic, specifically portrayals of relationships and characters in media. People do not want to deal with this or have their kids exposed to it. Okay, some of it is government-based. Okay, I mentioned the funny story about the issues Steven Universe had in Russia. That show also had issues in the United Kingdom, where they got too squeamish about two women in what seemed like a romantic clinch while they're dancing. Okay. Cartoon Network UK wound up having to re-edit that particular scene so that it didn't look like they were in a relationship, which in the storyline they actually were. So kind of awkward there. Much of the censorship surrounding this issue gets enacted in foreign countries where shows are localized. This has precedent, though, in the U.S. with the localization of Sailor Moon. Now, I misnamed them in the video, and I corrected that in the captions for it. I apologize for that. The actual issue with Sailor Moon was sailors Uranus and Neptune, who in the original source material were a lesbian couple. Okay, in the U.S. they made them cousins, but they didn't cut any of the romantic scenes. They just recontextualized the text. So now instead, making it infinitely worse because now they weren't just lesbians; they were also incestuous lesbians. So, yeah. There you go, guys. All right. Shows have been developed in recent years that have had LGBTQIA plus representation built into them, sometimes as the framework the entire show is built around. Two best examples of this are Steven Universe and She-Ra and the Princess's Power. Okay? While many shows can only get away with it in closing seasons or episodes, more shows recently are being overt about the representation with the support of their broadcast platforms. Okay? Some of these have been in terms of background characters. There's two shows in particular. One of them on Cartoon Network, Clarence. The other one is Loud House on Nickelodeon. Have characters who have same-sex couples as their parents. And Clarence, character that has two mothers. In Loud House, the character with two dads. Okay. The show, though, that got me thinking about the topic in general recently was the Owl House, who confirmed that their lead character is bisexual and they implied that she's starting a relationship. Yeah, I'm going to talk about them too. Okay. So then we go to the next slide. All right, so then we have the extra resources, and that's where I'm going to get into some of the video clips. Okay. Exam Packet has a number of links to additional resources. One of these is a series of 5 articles about representation, covered one platform per article. That is the article a 5-part article from Impact Nottingham. Okay. There are also 12 video clips which give samples from the following shows that are affected by these issues. And these are what caused the censorship issues in the first place. Now, I'm going to go get a sampling of these here, but I am going to play the Looper video, which covers the first 11 of these shows. And I'm going to get a couple of the other ones here. Let me take a look at my list, and we'll see which ones I can do here. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, though. So let me just bring up something that's going to make everything cascade. That'll work. All right. Let's see. All right. I'm going to share my entire screen here. All right. Because first I'm going to take a look at the packet. Okay. Just briefly go through some of these articles, okay, just to show you what order they are. So here's the first one. There's the Looper article. Okay, that's the first 12 pages, really. Okay. This is a overview of Deadly Force. Okay. Second one is the article How We Got to Sesame Street from the New Yorker. This is actually kind of an oral history of Sesame Street throughout its 50-year run. And it's an extremely long article. Okay. Next one, LGBTQ with less visibility. We have an article from USA Today. LGBTQ representation in children's TV is growing. We're talking about the love of a family. Okay. We have this one from, I think it's Extra. The unstoppable queering of TV cartoons. Then the third one is Steven Universe censorship undermines Cartoon Network's LGBTQ progress from The Guardian, which is a British newspaper. Okay, and then this one's the video clips. We'll come back to that. The Impact Nottingham article I did not reproduce in here because it is extremely long, but I gave you the links to go to check this article out because it is pretty thorough. Okay. Here's the video clips, and here's what we're going to do. We're going to take a look at each one of these, or actually a number of these, a good amount of them. I can't really do Deadly Force here because that link goes to an entire episode. That's going to be a little too much forwarding here. I am going to start with the Looper video, and we'll go from there. So here's the Looper video. Once I get past the ad, which I can't get past. I hate YouTube sometimes. All right, here we go.
Think of animated shows as harmless kids fare, but that isn't always the case. Each of these episodes was so raunchy, so stupid, or so downright confusing that they were denied an audience entirely. From its 1994 debut, Gargoyles gained a devoted fan base for its complex plots, fluid action, and serious storytelling. As an action-adventure series chronicling the lives of gargoyles who come to light to protect the places and people they love, the series explores themes including frustrated love, urban crime, and corporate greed. This willingness to go to intense places made Gargoyles an enduring hit that lives on display and tie-in comics to this day. In the minds of network executives, it also crossed the line. Season 1 episode, Deadly Force, is a compassionate yet stern story about gun safety, in which fun-loving gargoyle Broadway accidentally shoots human detective Eliza with her own gun. She is badly wounded and barely survives emergency surgery, and Broadway goes on a frantic, guilt-ridden crusade against guns. Ultimately, a very important lesson is learned about the safe handling of firearms, before several seconds of Eliza with a bullet in her belly filled the screen. Deadly Force was pulled from rotation for a while. In subsequent airings on spin-off channels, Toon Disney and Disney XD, recut the scene so that only Eliza's anguished face is visible. Regardless, the Gargoyles team remains proud of the message they sent about gun violence in this episode, and stand by it as a thoughtful examination of firearms and their mishandling. Dexter's Lab was one of the biggest successes of 1990s animation, an irreverent send-up of everything from Mr. Great Age Ambition, Marvel action heroes. At the heart of it was Dexter, megalomaniacal child genius with a secret lab behind his bedroom bookcase, and Dee Dee, his tutu-clad sister. Their clashes defined many episodes of the show, and typically went to bizarre extremes. That's when Dexter sought to grow a beard to display his manliness after Dee Dee's teasing, or when Dee Dee inspired a crush in Dexter's arch-nemesis, Mandark. That sibling rivalry reached new heights in Dexter's rude removal. In this infamous episode, Dexter develops a rude removal system to remove Dee Dee's more irritating qualities. This backfires, and Dexter ends up creating two versions of himself and assists a polite, vaguely British pair, and a pair whose every other word is censored by profanity bleeps.
What up, Ollie? Beats the out of me!
Despite its completion, Dexter's rude removal never aired. Series creator Gendy Tartakovsky mentioned it from time to time, growing its legend until finally it surfaced on late-night programming block Adult Swim's website. Despite that no curse word is ever actually censored, the mere fact of their existence was too much for delicate ears.
Clear choice. Thoughtful John Cornyn or liberal California-backed MJ Hagar.
Tiny Toon Adventures was known for its wry attitude toward cartoon conventions. Babs, Buster, and the rest of the Acme University gang raked fun at the expectations and tropes of the media, from subverting slapstick gags involving mallets and banana peels, to the contrasting iconic jokesters like Bugs Bunny and Daffy Duck, with genteel mortarboards and academic robes as a university's professor. From the cartoon setting in a town called Acme Acres to characters' names like Mary Melody, riffing off Warner Brothers' legendary Merry Melodies cartoons, the whole cartoon rests on a foundation of metatextual ribbing. But that went a little off the rails with the infamously bad beer. Plucky Duck, Hampton J. Pig, and Buster Bunny go on a whirlwind bender when they drink beer for the first time, quickly plummeting from wide-eyed kids to stubble-chinned lowlifes.
Babes wanna hang? Or what?
Despite the fact that Buster opens the escapade by outright saying, in this episode, we're showing the evils of alcohol, and ending it by asking if they can do a funny episode tomorrow now that they've let go of the kids, one beer was banned until 2013, when it was finally included in a DVD release. Let that be a lesson to animators across the globe, who try to teach valuable lessons. Cow and Chicken never pretended to be anything but crass. Its titular siblings, excitable second-grader Cow, and hot-tempered fifth-grader Chicken regularly got into trouble that made it clear that they were there to make kids laugh, not provide moral guardianship.
That's a good way to lose a beak! Ah, shut up, Cow! Mind your own business!
Take, for example, their enemy Bad Guy. Might have actually been the devil, but was most known for not wearing pants. Among his many aliases were Officer Patskovsky, Mrs. Berderia, Major Wedgie No Pants De Leon. No joke was too crude for this cartoon to indulge. There was, however, a limit the censors did not want crossed, and Cow and Chicken found it with Buffalo Gals. 7 solid minutes of lesbian jokes. Unsurprisingly, it's resistance from network executives, although it lives on through the magic of the internet. W. Wright Stokey the Bear was intended in the spirit of fun, and Adair is roundly, if kindly parodied in the episode as the home of trees, lumberjacks, the firewood industry, and much else. Slightly Whiplash is doing his diabolical deeds to better barbecue his hot dogs. Stokey was meant to be very much a parody of Smokey If Only You Can Prevent Forest Fires fame, but hypnotized by Snidely into setting fires. All in good fun, right? Wrong. The US Forest Service wasn't too pleased with the spoof of their beloved mascot, in no small part because Smokey was created with a very particular purpose in mind, one the episode was deliberately muddling. Understandable, perhaps, especially given that the episode's final tag implies Stokey was responsible for a Chicago fire in 1871. The episode was yanked, Stokey was snuffed, and it never saw airtime again. Batman the Brave and the Bold was a self-just tribute and recreation of Silver Age DC Comics. Quite funny and abashedly nonsensical. From the retro aesthetic to capers with titles like Invasion of the Secret Santas, Brave and the Bold was all about having a good and goofy time. Mostly, this resulted in kid-friendly hijinks of the laser guns and mad truth serums variety. In The Mask of Matches Malone, Brave and the Bold got downright naughty. When they're caught sneaking into a nightclub, Huntress, Catwoman, and Black Canary think fast and perform Birds of Prey, a throwback toe tapper about the men of the DC universe that stuffs an innuendo into every other line. This ranges from Catwoman purring, "What a weapon, what a bang" about Batman, the implication that Green Arrow doesn't always shoot straight, and a complaint about the Flash being just too fast. What got the episode booted off the Season 2 DVD collection was a suggestive finger waggle Huntress deploys when discussing Aquaman.
His little fish, less outrageous.
With a bit of reanimation to remove the telltale finger, it was included as a bonus episode on the Season 3 DVD. Thus, everyone now knows all about the male members of the Justice League and their prowess, on and off the battlefield. Cast your mind back to 1987 and recall the Garbage Pail Kids trading card. Their success rested entirely upon the fact that they were utterly disgusting as life. Grotesquerie, a perfect parody of the apple cheeked goodness of the Cabbage Patch Kids. With such characters as Adam Bomb, Oozy Susie, and Snotwitch Sandra, they were pulling no punches when it came to grossing kids out and cracking them up. The 1987 Garbage Pail Kids cartoon went too far for the US viewing audience, starring Split Kit, Bug Dwayne, Elliot Mess, Terry Cloth, Patty Putty. The eponymous kids used their disgusting powers to save the day. Groups including Action for Children's Television and Christian Leaders for Responsible Television protested, however, and the show was yanked from the airwaves mere days before release. Though it did go on to air in other countries, it never saw the light of US viewership. Garbage Pail Kids were, to be frank, dumped. The English language dub of anime mega hit Sailor Moon cut and censored so many things from the original Japanese version, it merits a video of its own. Many of these changes have become infamous. Sailor Uranus and Sailor Neptune, originally lovers, were changed to cousins, and multiple instances of implied nudity was scrapped. Before many of these now infamous choices made, however, was Day of Destiny, finale to Season 1. Originally a two-parter, Day of Destiny sees Sailor Moon and company storm the evil Queen Beryl's Ark Fortress. Her henchmen attack, and the battle quickly goes south. Sailors Mercury, Mars, Jupiter, and Venus all die on the ice, and Sailor Moon is forced to fight the supercharged Beryl on her own. Given that the original Japanese title of the first episode is Death of the Sailor Guardians, the tragic final battle, it's perhaps unsurprising that it was cut, and the finale reduced to one cobbled-together episode for the US market. While it wasn't outright banned, the original version was just too much for kids. 1990s playgrounds the world over found themselves beset by a new fad. It was called Pokemon, and it still has yet to release its grip on young minds. Kids just can't get enough of Pikachu, Squirtle, and the gang. The rumor haunted the franchise early on, mutating as it passed from kid to kid. There was an episode, they whispered, that was banned. The internet was in its infancy, and no one had ever seen the fabled episode, so the tales grew unchecked. Even today, you might hear a child whisper about a killer episode of Pokemon that no one has ever seen. Unlike other kid-spread legends, this one really did turn out to be true. Electric Soldier Porygon is the episode in question, and it was indeed banned from the airwaves for reasons of public health. Hundreds of Japanese children were rushed to the hospital after it aired in 1997, suffering from seizures, convulsions, and vomiting. It turned out that a brief moment of bright, strobing animation induced this illness and set off a generation's fate of gossip. 20 years later, it still fascinates her, though luckily, those seizures know to keep well away. The Powerpuff Girls was never a show content to be normal. The very premise itself, man combines sugar, ice, everything nice, and the mysterious black ooze creates triplets, is bizarre. And episodes hinged on everything from elaborate Beatles parodies to the sinister effects of food consumption. In Season 5's See Me, Feel Me, Know Me, this was taken to new heights. In an homage to rock operas like Tommy, the episode is a sung-through musical in which the girls meet a magical gnome who promises to vanquish all evil in exchange for their powers. He makes Townsville into a cult. Eventually, the day is saved, Townsville is restored, and the gnome is defeated. So why did Cartoon Network keep the episode off US airwaves? Questions swelled for years until show creator Craig McKinnon finally provided some answers via his Tumblr. They banned it because they claimed that the metal beams in the destroyed buildings looked too much like crosses, and one of the hippies looked like Jesus. The staff was surprised and the fans were deprived, but it all worked out in the end. The episode is now available to anyone who wants to watch it on Hulu, iTunes, or on the original series DVDs. Anime exploded into popularity in the late 1990s, and Toonami, a Cartoon Network programming block aimed at the action-hungry after-school crowd, was a huge part of why. From Sailor Moon to Dragon Ball Z, Toonami had the coolest, edgiest, often weirdest cartoons Western kids had ever seen. It kept them glued to their TVs. New episodes daily. Movie-length specials were hyped for weeks prior to airing, and occasionally, Toonami even pushed the boundaries of what was considered acceptable. Action was tougher, faster, and more intense on Toonami, and jokes were a bit more edgy. Outlaw Star, a spacefaring action series, often pushed that line, but one whole episode was deemed unacceptable, impossible to edit into suitability, and unceremoniously dumped. It's no surprise as to why. Hot Springs Planet Tenrei sees hero Gene Starwind descend to a world of beautiful saunas filled with even more beautiful and always enclosed ladies. In the end, kiddie viewers just had to deal with the lack of continuity. Until many years later, it aired on the late-night reimagined Toonami, intended for just those kids who'd love it the first time around. Check out one of our newest videos here, plus even more Looper videos about your favorite cartoons are coming.
Alright, so we're getting there, up there on time, so I'm going to go with one other of the episodes. We'll do quick question and answer, and then we'll go ahead and let you guys out. I think this one's going to be the shortest one, so we're going to go with the Owl House. So again, this is the actually triggered me to pick this topic.
Did you want to ask out? Oh, it's not important.
And there you have it, folks. A happy egg for this year's Grom. Let's give a big hand to our Grom queens, Luce and Amity.
You did it, buddy.
Of course I did it. I'm the king of demons, and I've never had stage fright in my life. They love me!
All right, so a lot of it is by implication there. All right, so let's go ahead and open it up to last few minutes here. Let's get some questions out there, and then cut you guys loose. So if anybody has any questions about the exam or about the slides, about the synthesis, about the blog, anything like that, now's the time to ask. How long is the final exam? Okay, the general length on this is going to wind up being 1 hour and 50 minutes. Okay, I'm going to put that in the chat here. 150. Okay. Some people are going to have accommodations for longer, but if you do not have those accommodations, we're going to stick with 1 hour and 50 minutes because that's the amount of time you would have if we were doing this face to face. Okay? So. One thing I will also note, in the exam packet, you have potential questions that may show up. At least 2 of them will show up on the exam. So you have those questions so that you have a chance to practice. Okay, they'll allow you to practice writing the responses to those within the time limit. All right, there's no other questions. It's now coming up to 2 o'clock. We'll go ahead and cut you guys loose. We have another one of these sessions coming up next week. We have another lecture next week. Make sure everybody gets your blogs in on Friday. Okay. Activities from the lectures are for practice only. Okay. I do want you guys to do them because they also really count toward participation. Okay. All right, so I'm going to cut you guys loose. We'll have another lecture next week. We'll have another one of these sessions on Wednesday. We'll see you guys then. Thanks for coming by.